You've been thinking about buying a sailboat and sailing and living on it, fixing it up, and possibly going and exploring the world. Well, over the next half an hour here, I'm going to talk to you about my journey over the last 5 seasons where I purchased my own boat, I fixed it up, I lived on it during the winter here in Canada, and then I sailed it 2,000 nautical miles all the way from Toronto down the eastern seaboard to Miami, across the Gulf Stream, and into the Bahamas. Now this podcast, maybe you're on your way to work, you're driving in your car, and you're thinking the same thing that I was thinking. So over the next 30 minutes here, I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey and what I've been up against, and we're going to get into what I'm up against for next season. You see, a few weeks from now, I'm going to be getting on a plane here in Toronto, flying to Florida, where my boat is, my 36-foot Scepter. She's on the hard right now, just outside of Lake Okeechobee. And I'm going to do some repairs, I'm going to launch her, and we're going to go back into the blue waters of the Caribbean. So we're going to talk a little bit about what I'm up to and these challenges. So sit back, crank that volume button up. You're probably on your way to work right now. This is a podcast for like minds, for people who want to get into sailing, who want to buy their own boat, who want to go and explore the world and see it for themselves. Well, this is something I did. All right, so let's get into it. My name is Michael Potts. I live on a Scepter 36-foot sailboat, and this is where I am today. Right now, I'm just outside of Toronto. The hurricane season is almost over. There's probably a few weeks left in the hurricane season down in Florida. It's 2023. All right, so, wow, where to begin? So let's talk a little bit about the history, my history, and what I did and how I ended up where I am today. Now, I have a YouTube channel. It's called Sailing EV. You can look it up on YouTube. And there's almost 100 videos exploring the journey from when I bought the sailboat. I learned how to sail it. I fixed it up. Lived on it during the winter. And then I untied the lines and I left Toronto, Canada, and made it all the way to the Bahamas. All right, so I found my Scepter 36. She's from 1979. She's exactly 1 year older than I am. And, man, it's when I first saw her, it was like falling in love. You know, she just looked like this massive, she was out of the water in Georgian Bay, Ontario. She looked like this sailing machine, you know, beautiful hull. And I went inside her and just was like, fell in love instantly. And I knew that was a boat for me. I found her on Yacht World. And so I started bidding on her. The owner, Murray, said, no, not going to happen. And then I had a surveyor go in and found a bunch of problems with the skag. And anyway, I bought her. I'm not going to release the price to you at this point just because it would be dumb for me to do that. But I ended up investing $10,000 into repairs of her hull, getting her all fixed up. And then I put her on a transport truck and transported her down to Lake Ontario, where I did somewhat of a refit on her. And I learned to sail in Lake Ontario. I crossed the lake, I went up and down, I went up the St. Lawrence. You can watch those videos. Now, I'll tell you, it's been one hell of a journey. And I'm so excited because just a few weeks from now, I'm going to get back to the boat and begin season 6 of Sailing EV. So, we're going to talk a little bit about costs, what it's costed me, and what you're going to be up against here. All right, so few things. Don't buy the first boat that you look at. Just don't do it. You'll know when you find the boat that you really want, okay? Because I made offers on boats, and I'm so glad that they didn't accept them because it wasn't the right boat for me, okay? I was sort of raised in a sailing family where we had a 34-foot boat, and it seemed so big to me as a kid. But I ended up with a 36 for a reason. It's still too small. You know, I want a bigger boat. Now, the right boat, you'll know when you see it. You got to go through. Don't just jump on the first boat that you find, okay? Find the right one that's got a good diesel engine. It's got a good passing survey. And it's got just enough gear for you to do what you need to do. Now my boat has davits, it's got a dinghy, it's got a good brand new Tohatsu engine, a lot of space inside. There is a nice head and stove, and everything's all set up for long-term cruising. So I was lucky in that regard, because if you're going to do any long-term cruising, you really need to figure out a way to get a boat that has all these things. Okay, in order for you to put davits on your boat that you buy, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars. So find something that someone's already souped up. Now, I installed solar panels and lithium-ion iron phosphate batteries, and I rebuilt the engine. It's a Yanmar 2QM20, and I did a head gasket change myself. You can watch those videos. I really learned about what I need. I got all the manuals. I figured it out. That's what you need to do. You need to be prepared and know your boat inside and out. Have all the tools to fix it on hand, because at the end of the day, it's just you and the boat when you're out there. Now, I remember times when I was like far off the wild coast of Delaware, heading towards Norfolk, Virginia, and I'll tell you, all the preparations that I did paid off in the end. Because I was out there alone, sun going down, you can't see land, and all you have is that boat and whatever knowledge you've gathered to that day, and you're out there at sea. Just for context, I remember I left, it was off the wild coast of Delaware, heading towards Norfolk, Virginia, and had been at sea for a long time, and it's pretty much a really wild area. It's uncharted, okay? And I was humming along, the sun was going down, and I had this calm fear come over me, because I knew the sun was about to go down. It would be dark, completely dark. When you're at sea and the sun goes down, you see nothing. Unless there's a moon out. There wasn't on this night, it was overcast. So it was absolutely black, dark. And it was big waves, and the sun was, was moving forward. I looked down at my depth sounder, and it says, all of a sudden, we were at it was like 80 feet. All of a sudden, it said 6 feet, and I'm like, what the hell? So I cranked over the helm and headed out to sea. And I was thinking, Jesus, is this area not charted right? I almost ran up on a sandbar. Think about it. It's nighttime, you're stuck on a sandbar in the middle of the ocean, you can't see land. So it's really scary. I know it doesn't sound as scary right now, but when you're actually there behind the helm of your boat, you're in charge and you're out at sea, it's a different feeling. This is the type of thing that you're going to have to deal with if you buy your own boat, and if you want to sail around the world. I will guarantee you're going to get into some really sticky situations. It's just the nature of the business. When it comes to sailing, at one point you are going to be close to death, okay? And you will be white-knuckled at the helm, wondering, what the hell was I thinking? I'm out here, I'm probably going to end up dead. Now, I've made it through a number of situations. I got my mast caught under a bridge in Atlantic City. You can watch that video. I washed up on the beach in Bimini at night. Thought I was a total loss, but managed to make it through that too. And you can watch those videos. That video is called My Biggest Sailing Mistake Yet Ever. So, it is absolutely crucial that you listen to what I'm saying here, guys. This is important. I know you're on your way to work. I know that's going through your mind. Hey, maybe I should get a boat, and fix it up and sail off into the horizon and go explore the planet. Yes, that is a great idea. However, you need the right boat. It's absolutely crucial that you find the right boat that's the right one for you within your price range. Okay, if you drop $500,000 on an oyster, power to you. It's going to be, you'll probably still have problems with it, even though it's brand new. Every boat has its issues, and you just have to sort of manage that and move forward and just have everything sort of in control as captain of the boat. So let me continue on with this story. We're off the coast of Delaware. It's nighttime. The sun's just gone down, and all of a sudden I was at 80 feet and it went to 6 feet. And it scared the living hell out of me, because I'm thinking, Jesus, the waves were really steep, maybe 10, 15 foot waves. So I was thinking, if I get smashed off a sandbar out here, I can't even see land. It's going to take hours for anyone to get to me. The water was absolutely cold. It was late December. So I was scared. And at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure it was just a school of fish below me. That's my theory. but it scared me enough to where I was like, I just didn't like the feeling of just a random sandbar coming out of nowhere in the middle of the ocean. You got to consider these things. It's not for the faint of heart. All right, so eventually I did make it into Norfolk and entered the ICW. You can watch that video. Okay, so season 6 right now, it's approaching November. It's like mid-October. Over the last 5 months that I've been on land here, I've been working. Unfortunately, there was a film strike. I'm a camera assistant with a union called IATSE here in Toronto. We make feature films for Amazon and for other various streaming channels. And unfortunately, there's been a film strike. Okay, so my usual job just was non-existent. So I actually had to go and work for a landscape company, guys. Okay, and my budget for this year is next to nothing, but I've managed to work really hard. My parents were nice enough to let me stay in their guest bedroom, which overlooks the power plant in Lake Ontario, where I left this time last year. I sailed across Lake Ontario, single-handed, down into New York State, all the way to New York City. Okay, and then I made my way down the eastern seaboard into Florida, ended up in Bimini, and I put the boat on the hard. You can watch those videos. So what am I up against for this year? So along the way, I met a gentleman named Steve Cantwell. Now he's an elderly gentleman, and he was a Navy quartermaster. And him and his wife spent 25 years sailing on their yacht in and around the Bahamas. So he invited me to his home in Vero Beach. I met with him at the marina, and he gave me charts, and he gave me valuable knowledge. And if you're listening, Steve, thank you, sir. You've been so helpful to my journey. You're going to find one key thing is to listen to the other people that have been out here for years. Take their knowledge. This is why you're listening to this podcast now. You're probably on your way to work. You're trying to figure out exactly how you're going to do this. Do the research. Listen to these people talking. Now, I'm going to tell you my experience. Okay, so far. So what am I up against for season 6? I made a huge mistake, guys. I was in Florida. I was putting the boat on the hard. You can watch the video. I got her on the hard, and I literally had a few hours before I had to get on a plane and fly back to Toronto. So there was a lot of ice built up in my ice box. So I did the stupidest thing. I grabbed a screwdriver and started picking away at the ice. I didn't want the ice to melt and stink 6 months later when I come back, just like moldy, you know what I mean? I wanted to be able to clear the ice box out. So I used a screwdriver, chipped away at the side of the condenser, and I let the Freon out. Damn it. So I've been looking into it, and it's very expensive to replace a condenser. It's like $500 American. So I've come up with a system. I've done a lot of research. You have to do research. YouTube videos are a great way to figure out exactly how you're going to fix your boat, what to do, use the experience from other people. So my plan is to, it's quite a procedure actually. Once the Freon's out of your refrigerating system, it's over. You have to suck the air out. You have to seal that leak or replace the condenser. Suck the air out of the lines. Make sure that the system is sealed, and then replace it with refrigerant, which is R1234 or something like that, some sort of Freon, okay? And then you seal up the system, and then you turn on your compressor, and the refrigeration system will kick in again. Now, it's absolutely crucial you have your own refrigerating system, okay? Freezing things, keeping things cold beer is important, okay? Let's talk a little bit about that. There's been a tradition in the British Navy of grog and people drinking rum and alcohol. Now, I'm not a big drinker, I'll be honest with you, but I do smoke, which is silly. So if you hear me smoking here, it's something I'm working on. Everyone has their personal battles, their personal demons that they got to battle. Sailing, you will confront them. I'll tell you right now, if you plan on going out and sailing around the world, don't do it for the wrong reasons. Okay, don't bring your baggage with you. Because sailing and exploring and being a cruiser is not going to solve your problems. Whoever you are now will be the same person out in the middle of the ocean. Okay, so don't bring your baggage with you. That's something I learned. Okay, so where are we at here? What is my plan? So I booked the ticket. They're like $200. One way to Florida, Miami. So Toronto to Miami. I'm going to get, I've collected a bunch of gear. Look, guys, I've spent everything to bring you these videos. Everything. I bought a 360 camera. I work as a cinematographer, so I have a lot of gear. So I got to figure out a way to either send that via ground or all sorts of things. Last year I was in Bimini and I broke my autopilot. Okay, how did I break my autopilot? The autopilot that I have is electric. Okay, it's got a little motor that attaches to your steering wheel, your helm. And I was in Bimini and I was like looking on my phone. It was the morning. I was moving anchorages because there was some weather coming in. And I look up and I'm heading for a cement pillar. So with the autopilot engaged, I cranked the helm to the port side and I heard a popping noise, and then the autopilot didn't work. So the control head, the ST4000i, one of the components inside the circuit board had popped, and the thing was working, but it didn't steer. It just did nothing. It would show you your heading, but it just didn't control the electric motor. So I managed to get a used one. It's funny because I bought one off eBay and it was the wrong one. So I finally ended up with an ST5000 Plus, okay, control head. That cost me like $800. So I got a lot of gear that I got to bring with me back down to Florida. I got a new set of sticks, all sorts of things. So I'm going to bring you guys some really cool videos. Anyway, once I get down there, I got a boat with a ripped Genoa, which I ripped in Bimini. I got to fix that. I got to do a bottom job on the hull. I'm going to put some copper paint there. I'm going to really coat it on because it's amazing how quickly barnacles and algae and stuff will build up on your hull and slow you down. Now, the difference between 5 knots and 4 knots is actually pretty big. Okay, if you can get that little bit of extra speed, it knocks off hours at the end of your day if you're trying to move somewhere. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-order my paint and get everything sorted so that when I get to the marina, I can start making Evie saleable again. Right now, she's in a bit of a mess. She's dirty. I'm going to buff the hull. I'm going to do a bottom job. I'm going to change the cutlass bearing. There's the exhaust elbow on my Yanmar 2QM20 has a leak, so there's exhaust fumes going into the engine bay, and it's turning black. I had a leak in my water pump that circulates water throughout the engine. It had a leak, so all that salt water got onto the chain there, and oh my god, it's a nightmare. So I got to fix all that stuff and get that sorted out. And then once the boat's back to looking new again and saleable, and the engine's got a new oil change, transmission oil change, new cutlass bearing, everything's painted, I'm gonna launch her, and I'm gonna head into Fort Lauderdale, and I'm gonna I'm going to go to a sail loft and have my Genoa fixed. I ripped it in Bimini. And from there, I'm going to go to Palm Beach, make my way down the ICW all the way into Miami. And I'm going to cross the Gulf Stream into the Bahamas. Now, let's talk a little bit about what I've learned here, guys. So if you're going to cross the Gulf Stream, what is the Gulf Stream? The Gulf Stream is like a serpent of water that moves between Florida and the Bahamas, and it goes north. Okay, it's like a big stretch of water that's going around 2.5 to 3 knots. And it moves north all the time. Now, you can only cross, to go from Miami to Bimini, it takes you on a sailboat roughly 8 hours. Okay, you could do it in a powerboat in a few hours if you wanted to. But it's a very challenging thing. Now, when I was down there, I've done it 4 times, okay? So, when I was in Miami, I waited 2 weeks for the perfect conditions. You got to have the perfect conditions to cross this Gulf Stream because it can become a total nightmare. When you have wind that's going against current, you get these really steep waves, and you can get tossed about, and it can be very uncomfortable, and you could even damage your boat. So after 2 weeks of waiting, I just said, screw it. It's now or never, and I went out in a small craft warning, and then pretty much ended up on the beach in Bimini. I almost died. Okay, I almost lost my boat, which was a mistake. You can watch that video. So this time I'm going to wait for the right conditions. And I'm going to cross the Gulf Stream into Bimini. And then it's like a shelf. The Bahama Bank is like a 15-foot shelf area. The ocean that's surrounded, it's 8,000 feet, 2,000 feet on the other side. You got to kind of get across the bank. Now, I made it halfway across last season, and that's when my boats just started falling apart. I mean, it was a lot. I went through an alternator. My inverter was fried. It's really humid. So anyway, I went back to the U.S. and replaced all that stuff. And at that point, I'd been out for 6 months and done 2,000 nautical miles. So I had to call it. And the hurricane season was approaching. So I went back to Florida and put the boat on the hard. But this time, we're gonna cross over to Bimini. Okay, we're gonna go across the bank and into like Chub Cay and across to Nassau. And then there's this beautiful chain of islands called the Exumas that goes all the way down to Georgetown. Now, I don't know if you know anything about Georgetown. Georgetown, Bahamas is a very special anchorage where cruisers from all around the world gather in the wintertime. There's probably like 6,000 or 7,000 yachts all anchored in this beautiful anchorage just off of Stocking Island across from Georgetown. And it's always been my dream to be there. There's like they got a cruiser net on Channel 16 in the morning where everyone talks about what they're going to do for the day. It's just an area where I think there'll be people of like mind, people that are on the same they're on the same wavelength. They just want to sail. They want to live on their boat. They want to live free. They want to explore the planet. It's like a pilgrimage for me. So once we get into Nassau, I'm going to spend a few weeks going down the chain of the Exumas there. Highborn Cay, go all the way down and into Georgetown, where I'm going to spend a few months exploring the surrounding area. Turks and Caicos, Cockburn Island, okay, and really do day trips and just have friends on the boat and, drink rum every day, swim in the ocean, live my life. Just like you want to do, you don't have to be stuck in this on the rat wheel here on land. It's like driving to work and everything costs so much. And, one thing I've learned, it's basically the same price to live on a boat. When you're on land, you have insurance, rent, entertainment, wife, kids, whatever it is. It's costing you a lot of money per month. You kind of get stuck in this circular rat wheel. I hate to say it, but that's just what it is. So you need to figure out a way to transition into a sailboat. And once you're out there, it's just wind. Okay, it's just the cost of diesel and food and insurance. And of course, there's always the expensive repairs that come along with sailboat ownership. Anything that you see on a sailboat is very expensive. For example, the winches that I have. If you're going to buy a new set of winches, it's like $20,000. It's like the value of a new engine repair. I mean, these things you can carry in one hand, right? So things are expensive on boats. Sails, very expensive. So if you can get yourself a good set of sails, good engine, diesel engine, never an atomic 4, guys. Never buy a gas engine on a sailboat. It's a total nightmare. As soon as you have combustible fuel on a sailboat in enclosed quarters, it's a total hazard, in my opinion. So diesel is if you get yourself a good diesel engine that's been repaired, maintained, and taken care of, you have all the tools, all the manuals. It is the most important thing. When you buy a sailboat, you buy an engine and you get a sailboat with it. Okay, so I'm going to be doing some maintenance on the engine and take a look at the injectors and make sure everything's cool. Make sure I got all the pieces and spares and impellers and everything that I need. Fill that diesel tank up right to the brim. I need to think about a few things. Freshwater I got a freshwater tank. It holds whatever, I think it's 70 gallons, which isn't that much. The freshwater tank that I have lasts me about 3 days, and that's just doing dishes and showering, that sort of thing. So I'm trying to come up with a way to be able to refill my water. You can't do that in the Bahamas. I mean, you pull into a marina and fill up, it's going to cost you money. So what I'm going to do is bring some big jugs and strap them to the deck and dinghy ashore and fill the jugs, come back to the boat. It's just something you have to do every couple days, to refill your water. Fresh water is such an important thing. Eventually, what I would like to do, this channel is called Sailing EV, so I wanted to originally turn the boat into an electric sailboat where I'm sailing around the world from the power of the sun, wind, and tide. Sadly, that is a very, very expensive prospect. Okay, just one of these Ocean Volt motors themselves are $20,000. So that's something I didn't do. Rather than spend the money on a really perfect boat, I got something mediocre that would allow me to go out and experience sailing, and see if it was for me, which it absolutely is. And that's what I did. I got a decent boat. She's really old. It's good for a single-hander. I can control her, and I really can depend on that boat. She's got me through the thick and thin, the worst of it. So at the end of the day, I'm so excited to be able to go out and to bring you guys these videos. I hope you could subscribe to the channel. I hope you guys watch the videos, check them out, leave a comment. If you guys have any questions you want me to discuss in the future, please just leave a comment. You say, talk about this, talk about that. I'm going to try and do this sort of podcast every once in a while coming up, just because I want to bring you guys something you can consume rather than visually watching something you can listen to at work and just be a part of the channel in that regard. All right, so wow, season 6 about to begin. It's really sort of sinking in with me that I'm departing on this great sailing adventure, and it is possible, guys. You can do this. You just got to break it into categories. You gotta figure out all the nitty-gritty details of how you're gonna do it and just execute it. The day that I left the marina on the way to the Bahamas in Toronto, the day that I untied the lines and sailed off onto the horizon, was the best day of my life. It was the right decision. I was scared shitless that day. Just committing, knowing that you're going in one direction and not coming back, there's something extremely terrifying yet freeing at the same time. Like, I knew every day would be a new place to discover. Every day would be new sailing conditions. You're always constantly learning and discovering new things about yourself and about your sailboat every day that you're out there cruising. All right, so I hope you guys watch the videos this season. Leave me a comment. Thank you for listening to this podcast. There will be more coming up in the future. And that's it for now. Captain Michael, signing out.